And the Trump administration this week negotiated trade deals with Japan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. To dive into this and how it'll impact American businesses, we're joined by Javier Palomares, President and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council. Javier Palomares, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, President Trump has just struck a trade deal this week with Japan, 15% reciprocal tariffs, and along with several other countries. He's announced a deadline of August 1st for harsh penalties to go into effect, but many countries are lining up to do business with the U.S. and lessen those trade deals. What's your take on this?
You know, I think that inherently tariffs can be a good thing. I've always thought that a tariff is a tool, but it's a tool that should be used more like a surgical instrument, not a blunt instrument. But the fact that we're going through the process, we're reviewing the agreements and where we stand with all these diverse countries, in and of itself, I think is a good thing to do. I'm delighted to see that, you know, practically every nation that matters is lining up to make sure that they're in good footing and good standing with the United States. That in and of itself, I think, has brought to the forefront for every American just how globally important our economy is. As our economy goes, often so does the rest of the world.
And where do you see the trade deals headed with this trajectory? What's going to happen down the road?
You know, that's been the real quandary here for the American business community. For us, whether a huge, global conglomerate or a small mom and pop company, I work with all of them, and we represent about 4.5 million Hispanic-owned small businesses that collectively contribute just north of $850 billion. We rely on imports from a variety of countries, not the least of which is China. And so for us, it's the uncertainty. It's not the not knowing where we go from here. You know, it's on again, off again. So we're hopeful that we can get to the point to where it's been decided, we'll deal with it at that point, and we'll move forward. But the fact that we're having the exercise in and of itself, I don't think it's inherently bad. What we need now is decisive action. It's a plan. And it's, a moving forward from here.
And as far as the U.S.'s neighbors, Mexico and Canada, the U.S.'s two largest trading partners, just last year, U.S.-Mexico trade reached $840 billion. U.S.-Canada totaled $760 billion. How would you characterize the current relationships between the U.S. and those? And also, is trade possible?
It's a tougher one. I have to give credit to both Sheinbaum and to Canadian Prime Minister Carney. In both instances, these two leaders, both Canadian and Mexican, have done, I think, an admirable job of maintaining a sense of diplomacy and continually coming to the table to try to deal with the United States. I'm hopeful that we will lower the temperature here in the United States and deal with these critical allies. Never mind, Jack, the implications from a national security standpoint, which should be obvious to everyone. Above and beyond that, we've also got the economic dependence with both of these nations. If you add Mexico, America, and Canada, we are the economy of this hemisphere. And as we go, so goes the whole hemisphere and potentially the entire globe. So the relationship that must exist, the mutual respect that must exist, the collaboration that has to exist between us, our neighbors in the south in Mexico, our neighbors in the north in Canada, is critically important. The economies and trade is a part of the overall relationship, an important part. And so I'm hopeful that very soon we will find a place where we can work with both of these neighbors in a way that is fair and that is equitable for all three of us.
And I want to pivot it just a little bit. Illegal border crossings in June dropped to the lowest level ever recorded, a fraction of what they were under the previous administration. What do you think the impact on Americans and small businesses are going to be?
There are so many inputs here. First, if you look at immigration reform in its broader context, where we're headed in the nation relative to immigrants and immigration and deportations, mass deportations, the velocity in which we are pursuing immigrants in this country. Many of my members are in either the agricultural, the manufacturing, the construction industries, and so forth. And these are industries that absolutely rely on immigrant labor. In agriculture, 83% of the labor is of immigrant background. In construction, 65% of the labor is of immigrant background, and the list goes on. And so for those sectors and the companies that I represent within those sectors, this whole notion of immigration is a very tricky thing and a very scary thing right now. As border crossings have lowered, this is a good thing. We were always and will continue to support this president, this administration, in the rapid identification and removal of those that we know are here to do us harm, no question. The concern we're having now is that we're hearing reports of people who in fact don't have a criminal record being deported, and that has sent shockwaves throughout the entire country. We have instances where construction company owners, manufacturing owners are complaining that entire crews aren't showing up for that day or for the week. And this is obviously very impactful, very negative for the industries. Again, it's the uncertainty that is causing a great deal of negative impact in the economy and particularly those industries that I mentioned.